Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have believed, idha laqitum, when you met. Now, the rules of conduct are being laid with regards to battle. That, O believers, when you meet, fi'atan, a group. Which group? A group of disbelievers. Meaning when you confront them in the battle, fathbutu, then become steadfast. Stand firm. Fathbutu. Fathbutu is from the root letters sabata, sabat. What does that mean? To stand firm. So, become firm, become stable, remain fixed, don't become shaky, don't become double-minded, don't think maybe we should go back home. No. Once you're in that situation, then don't leave until the matter is completed. Don't leave until the matter is concluded. Fathbutu, remain firm. Do not become weak. And how should you strengthen yourself? وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. And remember Allah much. لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. So that you may be successful. May be successful where? Over here in the context, in the battle. If you want victory, then what do you have to do? Once you've gone in, remain firm. And how do you bring that confidence to yourself? How do you remain firm? By remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much. وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. So in this ayah, the rules of conduct with regards to battle are being laid down. Two rules are given over here. First of all, when facing the enemy, be firm and steadfast. Do not leave the battlefield. Because if you leave, then what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You're going to be defeated. Halfway through you say, okay, this is getting too tough. This is getting too difficult. Let me just go back. If you leave, your leaving is also going to affect the rest of the people. Isn't it so? You're going to affect the rest of the group. Even they will also decide to leave. So once you've gone in, stay there. Stay there until you are victorious. There's this very interesting story of this person. He was always victorious in every challenge that he took up. So basically, if he was ever fighting another person or confronting another person, he would always be victorious. So somebody asked him that, how come you're always victorious? So he said, okay, let me show you. He said, you bite my finger and I will bite yours. Okay? Whoever releases his finger first is going to be the loser. So he said, okay, fine. So he started biting the other person's finger and the other person started biting his finger. So they were biting and then all of a sudden the other person, he released his finger. He gave up. So he said, what happened? He said, I was just waiting for you to give up. That was my target. And I knew that, okay, a few seconds left, a few moments left, he's going to give up very soon. So the key to my victory is that I don't give up until the other person gives up. This is the key to victory. So the same lesson is being taught to us. Once you've gone in, don't give up, don't leave. Sometimes it's just a matter of a few seconds, just a matter of a few moments. Don't give up, keep going. And very soon you will be victorious. And how do you make yourself confident? How do you overcome the pain? وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Remember Allah much. Because that will enable you to remain firm. The Prophet ﷺ said, O people, do not wish to face the enemy in a battle. First of all, what are we told? Don't wish to face the enemy. Sometimes people become so zealous, they become so emotional, that they wait that, such a difficulty must come our way, and we must face the enemy, so that we can end up in the prison, or we can end up, being tortured by the enemy. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? Don't wish for it. Do not wish to face the enemy in battle. And ask Allah to save you. Ask Allah for afiyah, for protection, for being saved from calamities. But if you should face the enemy, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does put you in a situation where you are made to face the enemy, then be patient. Be steadfast, be patient. And let it be known to you that paradise is under the shadows of the swords. Meaning, the path to Jannah is difficult. And once you are confronting the enemy, once Allah has put you in that situation, then know that perhaps inshallah this is your way to Jannah. So it is extremely important that a person should become firm and he should have steadfastness when doing something important, especially when it comes to facing another, confronting another. Because if we lose courage and we give up, then we'll never be able to accomplish anything. And this is not just with regards to, big things like battle, but even little things. For example, just memorizing your lesson. Sometimes we're going halfway through and we're like, oh, this is getting too difficult. Forget it. I'm going to sleep. Let me take a break. Sometimes I can't understand. People are doing their work and after 15 minutes, after 20 minutes, I need a break. They'll check their phone. They'll check their email. فَاثْبُتُوا. Have some sabr. Be steadfast. Once you've started, complete it and then move on to something else. Have some steadfastness, because if you don't, then it will become very difficult for you to accomplish anything in life. Anything at all. Sometimes we become bored. It's been too long. It's been almost a year. It's been 6 months. I'm doing the same thing. I need a change. I need to do something else. I need to do something different. And if a person is constantly like this, that he gets bored or he wants a change, then again, he will never be able to accomplish anything. So the key to success is that once you've started something, then don't leave until you've completed it. Don't leave until you've completed it. The second rule that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us over here is وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. That engage in the dhikr of Allah. Especially when? When facing the enemy. Because when a person remembers Allah, then what happens? Shaitan leaves. Isn't it so? And sometimes when we're doing something, who makes it so difficult for us? Shaitan. So what's of shaitan? Okay, what's going on over there? Check your phone. Is there a message? Is there an update? Check your email. Maybe you have very important emails. Go see what they're saying. Just go call that person. Go look outside. Just walk to the window. Just touch the mouse. Just touch the keypad so that the screen comes on and then you see all of those messages that have popped up. So when you're doing something, shaitan is constantly putting waswasa in your heart to distract you, to make you lose courage. But what does Allah say? Engage yourself in the dhikr of Allah so that shaitan is kept away. And at the same time, negative thoughts are also kept away. Because when a person engages in the dhikr of Allah, then what happens? His heart becomes calm. What do we learn? أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. It's with the dhikr of Allah that the hearts find peace. Now just imagine a person is in the middle of the battle and he begins to panic and he begins to scream. And he's not doing the dhikr of Allah. Is he going to be able to face that challenge? Is it going to affect other people? Of course. So what do you need in this situation to give you confidence, to give your heart satisfaction and contentment and peace? The dhikr of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, which is similar to the previous one that I mentioned, that do not wish to face the enemy in a battle and ask Allah to save you from calamities. But if you should face the enemy, then stand firm and remember Allah much. What does this hadith say? That stand firm and remember Allah much. Then if they make loud noises, who does they refer to? The enemy. If they make loud noises, why would they make loud noises? The mushrikeen, especially when they would go in battle, sometimes they would have their women accompany them. And these women, they would scream or they would wail or they would cry. Why? In order to encourage their men, to motivate their men. Similarly, they would have people reciting poetry loudly. Why? To motivate the people. And sometimes, out of fear, out of panic, they would begin to make noise. So if they begin to make noise, then what should you do? Upon you is silence. Meaning you must remain silent. Let them make whatever noise they want to. Their drums are beating, their women are screaming, their men are reciting poetry. What should you do? Remain silent. Upon you is silent. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِالصَّمْتِ. But what is our condition? That we cannot even remain silent where we are required to remain silent. Generally, if there is a situation of panic, people begin to scream, people begin to yell, oh my God, and what's going on, and yelling and screaming. But what's the best way of facing such a situation? Remaining silent, remaining calm. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ instructed us to do as well. What do they teach you here in schools? That if there is a fire alarm, what should you do? Stay calm. right? Because if you begin yelling and screaming, then what's going to happen? Everybody's going to become panicked. So, avoid that and remain silent. And there are 3 times in particular when a person must adopt silence. 3 situations where a person must adopt silence. What are they? First of all, when the Qur'an is being recited. When the Qur'an is being recited, what are we told? Remain silent. Secondly, when the janazah is being placed, meaning when the buried person is being placed in his grave, when the deceased is being placed in his grave, then at that time also we should adopt silence. And thirdly, when facing the enemy. Because if we remain quiet, only then can we do dhikr of Allah. If we start talking to other people, if we start yelling and screaming, if we start crying out loud, then how can we remember Allah? We cannot. If we remain silent, only then we can do dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا, and remember Allah much. And this is the key to success. لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, so that you can be successful. And we learned that the Prophet ﷺ at the Battle of Badr, he also engaged in a lot of dua. Because dhikr is not just doing dhikr of Allah in the sense that doing tasbih. But dhikr also includes what? Making dua. And the Prophet ﷺ did that. There's so many du'as that we learned he made at the Battle of Badr. For example, one of them is Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum bi rahmatika astaghith. Bi rahmatika astaghith. It's your mercy that I want. Similarly, Allahumma munzil al-kitab wa mujri al-sahab wa hazim al-ahzab ihzimhum wansurna alayhim. That, O Allah, revealer of the book, the one who revealed the book, the mover of the clouds. That all these clouds up there, who moves them? Allah moves them. And defeater of the confederates. Meaning, those who come against your believers, you are the one who defeats them. Defeat them. Defeat these people as well. And grant us victory over them. Grant us victory over them. So the Prophet ﷺ, he engaged in a lot of dua at the Battle of Badr. Ka'b Ahbar, he said that nothing is more beloved to Allah than the recitation of the Holy Qur'an. What did he say? Ka'b al-Ahbar, that nothing is more beloved to Allah than the recitation of the Holy Qur'an. If this was not the case, then he would not command people to pray and do jihad. For even during jihad, he has ordered his servants to do the dhikr of Allah. So according to him, dhikr over here means what? Reciting the Qur'an. Even in this situation, what should you do? Recite the Qur'an. So وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا, what does it mean? First of all, making dua. Secondly, reciting the Qur'an. Recite the Qur'an as well, in the battle. And thirdly, general dhikr as well. The Prophet ﷺ was once asked, which prayer is the best? Which prayer is the best? And he replied, that in which Allah is remembered the most. He was asked, which fast is the best? He replied, that in which Allah is remembered the most. Then he was asked, which hajj is the best? And he replied, that in which Allah is remembered the most. What kind of jihad is best? He replied, that in which Allah is remembered the most. So any good deed, if it is accompanied with the dhikr of Allah, that is what makes a good deed best. So even if it's something like jihad, even if it's something that you're in the middle of the battle, then what is it that's going to make that deed best? It's the dhikr of Allah. It's the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, 2 instructions have been given over here in order to be successful. First of all, remain firm. Secondly, engage in the dhikr of Allah. But remember, in order to do the dhikr of Allah, we have to adopt silence. Because sometimes what happens? Naturally, when people are in a difficult situation, instead of doing dhikr of Allah, what do they start doing? Yelling and screaming and talking to other people. And sometimes even if they want to do the dhikr of Allah, they're unable to. Isn't it so? They're unable to. So, only if a person is used to doing the dhikr of Allah in normal situations, then he will be able to do the dhikr of Allah in this situation. Do you understand? If you're used to it in other situations, then you'll be able to do it in this situation as well. Like, once a sister was mentioning that when she went for Hajj, she realized that those people who were not usually engaged in their ibadah of Allah, they were not able to do ibadah, even at Hajj. But people who are used to it from before, only they're able to do it over there. Similarly, if a person is used to doing dhikr of Allah otherwise, only then he will be able to do dhikr of Allah in this situation as well. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, and obey Allah and His Messenger. When? In every situation, but especially in the battlefield. Especially in this situation, where you are confronting the enemy. You have to obey your leader. You have to, you must. Because if you don't, then what's going to happen? You're going to head towards your defeat and not victory. So, أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, obey Allah and His Messenger. وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا, and do not dispute with one another. Do not dispute amongst yourselves. Do not have differences amongst yourselves. Do not take things personally and then start backbiting, blaming. No, don't dispute. Remain united. Because if you begin to dispute, what's going to happen? فَتَفْشَلُوا, consequently you will lose heart. You will lose heart. Because people, when they support one another, they have strength. When they're united, they are strong. What do they say? United we stand and divided we fall. So don't argue, don't dispute, because if you do that, then what's going to happen? You're going to lose confidence. You're going to lose your strength. You're going to lose your prestige as well. وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ, and your rih also will go away. The word rih, what does it mean? Wind. Rih is used for wind. And figuratively, the word rih is also used for ru'b, for awe that a person strikes in the heart of the other, of himself. Strength. So, the strength that you have, the ru'b that you have, which your enemy is awestruck by. If you begin fighting, if you begin arguing with one another, what's going to happen? You're going to lose your prestige. Isn't it so? For example, if there's a couple, a husband and wife, mother and father, as long as they're on the same page, as long as they're together, they're united, they're not arguing, they're not fighting with one another, people respect them. And the moment they start fighting with one another before others, people lose respect for them. People lose respect for them. Remember that. As a family, as a couple, as friends, as co-workers, if you have some differences, voice them in private. Don't voice them in public. Because if you do so, people are going to lose respect for you and also your spouse. They're not going to respect you anymore. Because when a person begins to argue and fight, then what happens? His negative side shows up. His negative side is revealed. They talk like this. This is what they say. This is how they think of their spouse. This is how they think of their coworker. This is how they think of their friend, of their sibling. So when you fight before other people, you lose respect in the eyes of other people. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is stopping us from. That لَا تَنَازَعُوا, don't fight with one another. Because if you do that, فَتَفْشَلُوا, first of all, you will lose heart. Because all of your focus and your energy is going to be diverted against who now? One another, instead of enemy. Until now, all of your focus was on who? The enemy, the work. And now because you have a personal difference with another person, your focus is going to be that person. Do you understand? You're going to be distracted. You're going to be distracted. You're not going to be focused. And on top of that, if the enemy sees you fighting with one another, even they're not going to respect you anymore. فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ وَاصْبِرُوا, and do sabr. Meaning, have some steadfastness and also be patient with who? With one another. Be patient with one another as well. Be patient when it comes to facing the enemy, and also be patient with one another. Because generally battle is fought in difficult circumstances. Isn't it so? If you've ever seen a video in which people are being trained for battle, you may have seen that they go through a lot. What kind of food are they eating? How they're traveling? How they're sleeping? What kind of clothes they're wearing? What situations they're in? So if in that situation a person's like, don't touch me, sit in your spot and don't touch me, mind your own business, and they start fighting over there, is this sabr? No. Is it going to lead to victory? Not at all. You have to have sabr. Wasbiru, and be patient, because unity comes with patience. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Indeed, Allah is with those who are patient. And those who are not patient, then what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also leaves them. So in this ayah, more key points are mentioned to attain success. And what are they? First of all, obedience to Allah and His Messenger. Obedience to the leader. You must obey the leader. You must obey Allah and His Messenger. Secondly, avoiding disputes. Avoiding disputes. Now, what does it mean by avoiding disputes? That people should be united. What does it mean by unity? That everybody should have the same opinion? Everybody should think alike? No, that's not what the meaning of unity is. Because if everybody begins to think alike, then there will be no creativity. Isn't it so? There will be no creativity. People differ. Every person thinks differently. But what is unity? That although you have differences, but when it comes to agreeing upon something, you agree upon it. Whatever the leader says, you agree with them. You don't say later on, I told you so. See, I said we shouldn't do this. No, nothing like that. Once all of you have decided to do something, then stay with the plan. Don't form your own party. Don't form your own group. Don't separate yourself from the rest. Because if you do that, that's going to weaken you. It's going to weaken your heart, your resolve, and it's also going to weaken the strength of the army. And as a result, what's going to happen? Your enemy is not going to fear you anymore. Your enemy is not going to respect you anymore. So what does unity mean? That despite differences, people respect one another. They agree to disagree. They respect one another and they agree to disagree. And if you think of it, that if I have the right to voice my opinion, if I have the right to think my way, then the other person also has the right to think his way. Who am I to say that my thinking is right and their thinking is wrong? Everybody has been given the freedom of thought. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given every person a mind with which he thinks however he wants to. Isn't it so? So if you think your own way, the other person thinks his own way, what's the big deal? If you differ, it's okay to differ. But when you've decided to do something, then stay with the rest of the group. Don't form your own group. Don't differ. Don't separate yourself. Because if you do that, there will be no unity. So, these two conditions are also placed over here. Because only if a person meets these two conditions, that obedience to the leader and then unity, then they will be successful. And the third command over here is of sabr. Be patient. Because when a person does sabr, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help and assistance is with him. We listen to the recitation of these ayat and then we'll continue. Anything you'd like to say?
The more you have solid grounds, more solid relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah guides you. Allah shows you how to take the things positive. Because out of no matter you're learning something or you're teaching something, anywhere in an organization, many times situations come up that one person say, okay, it's going to happen. Another say, no, I'm going to give it. It's not possible. But the more a person has a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no, Allah will aid me. Subhanallah, Allah hears them. Because it depends, either it's the glass half full or it's either the glass half empty. Every individual look at the things differently. Because I was just teaching this morning to my students in the tajweed session. And the end when say, وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحَكُمْ وَاسْبِرُوا. Even in the tajweed, it is said that the letters which are weak, they have less reliance on the makhraj out of them, that if we don't read them with their sifat, one can hardly listen that. For example, aflahu. If we don't give the sifa, af, it's gone. You say aflah, aflah. Can you hear me differently? One is aflaha and one is aflaha. Other way we eat completely, it's gone. So same is the situation, that the more we are away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we get weak. But if you have reliance there, no matter what situation comes, you stay there, Allah holds you back.
Exactly.
I was just thinking that how are we going to take these last two ayahs that we learned and how would we implement in life, especially when we're not going to war or anything. So I was thinking that whenever we're faced with a situation where we're like going to do haram or something like that, is stand firm. stand firm first of all. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much. Obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. Like, do the halal instead of the haram. And when it comes to tanaza'u, I was thinking, we say, oh, should we do it? Should we not do it? So don't have that inner argument with yourself at all, because that weakens you. And be patient, and then inshallah that will lead you to not doing the haram.
Not just in a situation where you are tempted to do something wrong, but anything that you wish to do to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Because over here, why were the Muslims going to battle? Because that was a command of Allah. That's what they had to do to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So similarly, if we are put in a situation where, as a team, as a group of people, we have to do something together for the cause of Allah, whether it is studying the Qur'an, or it is working, on a particular project as a group, then we must develop these characteristics. We must do them. Because if we don't, then we cannot be successful. Over here, tips or the guideline to success has been given. The guideline to success. For who? For a group that is working together to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get the pleasure of Allah. And what are those steps? If you look at the ayat, what are those steps? First of all, become firm. If you're 5 people working on a project, all 5 of you have to be firm. If one person leaves, it's going to affect the rest. Isn't it so that sometimes in school people are working together in a project, 3 people don't show up, 2 people do it themselves. It's so upsetting. They get so frustrated. We have to do the work and they get the mark. Or we cannot do the work properly because of them, and we also lose despite our effort. So first of all is remain firm. What's the second rule that has been given over here? Do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that will remind you of what? Of your goal. That will make you content. That will give you peace at heart. That will make you more focused. That will drive the shaitan away. And if you don't do the dhikr of Allah, then you're going to become distracted. Then you're going to become demotivated. And you're going to lose courage and you're going to leave very soon. What's another instruction that has been given over here? Obey Allah and the Messenger. Don't forget to follow the commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given and His Messenger has given with regards to the work that you're doing. Don't forget to take the instructions from there. And then, don't fight. Don't argue. Have differences. You are allowed to have differences. But don't disrespect one another when it comes to voicing out your differences. And don't voice them out in public before other people. Because if you do so, everybody is going to lose respect for you. Nobody is going to respect you anymore. And this is something that is applicable at the family level as well as at a community level, at a social level, at the workplace even. Have differences, but at the same time have harmony. And if we look at it, the Sahaba, they differed so much amongst themselves. They had so many differences of opinion, but they never disrespected one another. They would not disrespect one another. And this is what led them to their success. And then, be patient. Because if you are patient, then Allah is with those who are patient.